non-personal, but just business-wise, straight business, landlord-tenant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of gray area in any challenge to any rule, to any law, which is why courts are here, why attorneys get paid, why all this has been so fuzzy to so many people. The real important aspect that I see in any business contract or any landlord agreement or any agreement where good faith has kind of been eroded away over time based on history and past, trying to work these things out. Where are the teeth? Like, I don't mean that in an aggressive form at all. Perhaps teeth is not the proper word to use, but where does black and white meet? Because the things that I followed in dealing with this tenant over the years have always lived in a gray. And even when it just looks so black and white in your contract going in, all of a sudden it's gray, and then on Monday kids are there. And you don't want to be doing this type of business around kids or through kids or when parents are involved. Those are emotional aspects to business. We are in a business. We are in the business of protecting our assets, and we're also in the business of making sure we're all, I think, as people, that kids have a place to go. That's right. I don't think anyone here is saying, if they actually have in-district students, that we're not trying to give them anything. But in seeing how negotiations and things that this board has had to deal with this tenant in the past, the super concern to me is, and you need to look no further than how many times we've been sued, is, does this leave us open to something that's going to be gray again? Because I think my whole being is never go to court. Like, if I could just make it through my life without having to be in a lawsuit and go to court personally, I would see that as a massive win. Not because I think I'm doing things wrong to get sued, but just because I like to be someone who tries to reach out and find a common balance where both parties feel as though they win. And I don't think this community, especially at White Hill, is feeling like they're winning. I think that the community of parents, and I think the community in general, is feeling like they're not winning.
Well, and that's exactly why I've been thinking about this, because to eliminate the feeling of not winning, because I think people can accept more easily a transfer of classrooms if it's actually based on actual
Fact.
need and fact.
And fact.
Yeah.
Because I think that the need is a non-starter. The need is there. I don't think
Right,
anyone would
that's the
fight
law.
you. And I don't think the community would fight you. I think that everybody would just basically say, okay, but how are we validating? I mean, if we have 4 students that were on their list that are just telling us right now,
Mhm.
and that's 4, it's a small percentage, it's a small percent, it's almost 4%, right? But 4% times 2, if you get 4 more kids that didn't come out and just volunteer that information, but that you found, well, now you're talking 8%, And these are bigger numbers when you're talking about classrooms. I'm involved because my child has been impacted from the first day, so I have a fresh concept of what the impact is on a daily basis.
Well, the current ratio is roughly 15-1. So yes, eight kids would be more than half a classroom.
Right. So I guess I love the idea. I think you're onto something that's awesome because it's showing that, hey, we're not trying to be, circle the wagons and just fight you and go to court. We want you to have what you need, but we've had a hard time really seeing fact from where are their people, where are the numbers. I mean, the tenant kind of came out against, residency checks. Like, that to me is telling me right there that that's a problem. I mean, if anything, if I'm in the right spot, I'll just, here you go, stand to be counted. This is my address. Here's my driver's license. Here's my stuff. I'm just saying, like, those things make this feel that I love where this is going, and I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't know how the teeth, I should pick a different word, would work, but it would have to be so clear on both sides to even go for it. And I don't know as if we have 2 weeks to do that. Like, I couldn't make up my mind, I don't think, without another meeting to talk this out a little bit more now that I'm hearing the idea, to really process something in 10 business days.
Right, and what I'm super clear on is, so I hear that concern and share it. How do you do A, B, and C? And won't that end up in some sort of legal action if there's a discrepancy? Possibly, and if we don't do that, it still will anyway, because anyway, we're gonna have that symptom, so.
Right. That's my main concern.
Is there a way to informally or have our attorney ask them if that's even something that they would entertain? Because, I mean, as great as I think that you're onto something here, you know, if the opposition is just there, let's not spend it.
There is, but you bring up something that jogs a memory from, I think, last year. It's a whole discussion about, and I think Midge will remember it, was the word "of"
Right.
in a
Exactly.
sentence. And what exactly does that mean?
Wasn't it or?
Or, what, it
Shall
was
or
an
may,
O word.
shall or may.
Something, and, you know, in one circumstance it meant one thing, and to somebody else it meant something else, and so, you know, when you talk about teeth, what you're talking about, I think, is how do we make sure that whatever our agreement is, that it's enforceable, and that it can be implemented without there being some, oh, well, you know, we thought it meant this or that.
That's the absolutely main concern. Absolutely main
To me,
concern.
that's one main concern, is that I'm afraid that we haven't seen any evidence of an agreement actually working without going to court, because we've tried this many times, we've tried it. The other thing that is a challenge for me is that we are essentially negotiating against ourselves in terms of number of students. To say again that we're accepting their number, essentially, is what we would be saying with your proposal, that
Until August 28th.
yes, but between now and then, we're accepting their proposal, which has historically, year after year, 2 years, been wildly off, and to the detriment of the students that I am elected to serve. So that's painful for me to say, we will accept your numbers. I don't wanna go to court, I have no desire to go to court, I am a lawyer and I don't wanna go to court, ever. But I just lack the confidence that doing something where we're agreeing to the numbers again saves us from going to court, one. And two, does it really protect the students that my job, I 100% agree with you that I want to provide them with the classrooms to which they are entitled. For those students, because I want them to have wonderful places in which to live, but we haven't seen evidence that that's the case. And we're finding out new facts about representations made to us as we speak. So I don't know how you enter into an agreement with a party that you can't necessarily trust numbers and or what they say are residents.
And then there's also the possibility of not actually, you know, using their numbers and maybe not actually using our numbers, but maybe you could walk in with something to say, hey,
That's
you know,
negotiating.
we're here, you're here, we're thinking 125. You know, you're coming down 15, we're coming up 15. Maybe we base the original agreement on this number to move forward, because a lack of movement on their side or the tenant's side on this is really a lack
That's what I'm
of
saying,
negotiating
negotiating against ourselves,
at all.
exactly.
Right, that's
Exactly
exactly,
my point.
that's exactly.
And recognize, just because we have the deadline of February 1st to be able to complete our particular requirement, and given the press of time, I do agree that if there was an appetite to go down this road, it would take much longer probably than what we just described, but we're not foreclosed from negotiating an in lieu agreement at any point in the process.
Correct, that's true.
And so I don't know that we're really time limited here. I think the biggest obstacles really are, number one, we do not have the ability to agree on common facts. And that's something, and that you talk about all the time, and trying to get to common facts associated with, in this instance, who's an in-district student and who's not. And so there would need to be some reconciliation about how that would actually happen, and that's not given everything that has transpired here, I can't imagine that that's a 2-week process. And then second, I mean, one of the bases for, as I read RVC's argument, is their notion about how they pick up students, at least this is what they represent, during the course of the year. Now, presumably some of those students would be picked up from the second, if that's true, during the second part of this school year. But by the same token, if that continues to be their theory, then the question would be, if we use a date certain to say, okay, well, this is when we're going to recalibrate all of this, or are they willing to say, yeah, I'm willing to recalibrate it using a particular set of parameters that assumes some growth or no growth over the course of that particular year. So it seems to me that there's a lot to be done if there was a willingness to essentially discuss parameters, but I just can't see it happening within a 2-week period given everything that's happened today.